Hi kittens, I'm Julie Savone, psychedelic facilitator, integration expert, and your guide for this wild ride, The Inner Trip, 365 days with plant medicine. I've helped hundreds of people use plant medicine, primarily psilocybin, to heal, expand, and step into their next level. But this year, I'm taking it even deeper. For the next 365 days, I'm bringing you with me. I'll be microdosing, journeying, integrating, and exploring what it really means to live a limitless life, with plant medicine as a tool, not a crutch. So if you're ready to feel more alive, more clear, more limitless, and you're down to do it with mushrooms and a little bit of sass, you're in the right place. Let's take the inner trip. Kitten, I almost didn't do it. I had every single excuse in the book that I almost use. And I am the one who is the expert in this field. This is my work, but my intention here today is to share with you that I finally successfully tested the entire formula for my international retreats, and my God, is it good. So if this is the first episode you're ever listening to, well, first of all, hi, I'm Julie. I'm a psychedelic facilitator, high performance coach, and a former lawyer. And something that has been a reoccurring theme on this podcast is me talking about how I have this new formula for my international retreats where it's not just a psilocybin ceremony, it's also LSD. And it's really important that I go first. I think that's a core foundation for every facilitator of this work. And I think it's so interesting because in many professions, that's not the case, right? We think about an anesthesiologist, and I've been put under, I had surgery, and an anesthesiologist did it. And obviously they did it well because I came back. Or if you're someone who's not about me, first of all, why are you listening? But you might be thinking they did it wrong. Anyway, an anesthesiologist puts people under, but they haven't necessarily been put under, right? That's not like a prerequisite of their training. And to me, it's a little bit of an integrity bump. Because if I'm going to tell someone what to do, and here's the thing, like I never makes anyone do anything that they don't want to do, right? I would never, if someone, maybe you've listened to the last episode with Clarita. If not, great episode. I would go back and listen to it because she was a real retreat participant who almost didn't move forward with the psychedelic experience because she was very nervous. So I would never force someone to do it, but if I'm going to instruct you and tell you and like guide you through this experience, to me it would be a huge lack of integrity had I not done it first. So it is extremely important to me that I go first, that I test the formulas, that I give someone only a gram amount that I have actually done, because I need to be able to understand and hold the energy of that experience. So I always go first. And I'm taking Spanish lessons. I just hired a new EA, and she is also giving me Spanish lessons as part of our works together. And she told me this phrase, sí o sí. It's like yes or yes, right? And my international retreat in Mexico was coming up actually oh my gosh, no way. As you listen to this episode, if you listen to it the day it drops, you are probably listening to it while all the women in my retreat are in their own mushroom journey. The ceremony's already started. I mean, maybe not. Maybe listen to me first thing in the morning, in which case, no. But if you're listening to me like late morning, afternoon, evening of Wednesday the 6th or later, then you are listening to me while these women are in the journey. So send them some love. Those little pings through the ether. They feel them, right? And because it was so close, it was C or C for me to do this journey. Like, I gotta get it done. But that's the thing, like, even I have resistance. First of all, I'm in my home, which, I don't know, for my work from home cuties, if you feel this way, but I really feel this way for sometimes, like, I just need to leave the house because I'm like, oh, well, I could be doing laundry or the dishes, or I could be picking this thing up, or it's just sometimes hard to do things to work in the house for me. Same thing with a journey. It's like, oh, I could be working, or, oh, like, do I really want to do that now? Or, oh, I have 3 pets, right? There are so many things that come up for me. And like, to be completely honest, it's also, there's a lot of resistance to a psychedelic experience. I think people have a couple misconceptions. One is generally that like psychedelics are how we think of drugs, and meaning they're like very addictive, right? When that is could not be further from the truth. A few things. So psychedelics, LSD, and psilocybin are the only Schedule 1 substances that are absolutely non-habit forming. So we look at tests with rats, and rats will come back to little levers, and they will press the lever for more cocaine, for more alcohol, for more nicotine, right? But they will more heroin. They will not press the lever for more psychedelics. There's actually a real tolerance there's a tolerance that builds up that makes it harder to get to the next level of an experience, but there's also a big resistance that builds up. And in fact, when mushrooms were first brought to the United States in the 50s, the intention behind the research and what the research was focused on was actually helping people break addiction. They're great for helping people overcome addiction, specifically with alcohol. So that's a huge misconception, a big piece of propaganda that has been played out by the United States government. That's just not true. So I have resistance. It's like, I'm not going to a rave, right? Like, I do mushrooms for the healing experience. I do mushrooms to see what's coming up in my inner landscape, and to see what like is ready to be processed and healed and, you know, moved through. So I do have a lot of resistance to it. And it's not that it's scary. Well, it kind of is scary. Okay, so I want to think back about like Clarita's podcast. And again, if you haven't listened to it, I think it's an amazing episode where she really shares her experience, because for me, like, I've been in this work for so long. So, you know, I think I kind of, I sort of have lost that, you know, beginner's mindset beliefs toward it, or fears or feelings. But she talked about how she was really scared of like what she calls the monster under the bed. She was scared that something big would come up, that she wouldn't be able to find her way back to herself, that she wouldn't be able to deal with it, that would kind of consume her. And so for me, you know, I had the same fear. Not that like I would lose myself, because I've facilitated so many journeys, I've been on so many journeys. I know that you always come home, right? You always come back to whatever your normal waking consciousness is. It was more that I was just like, damn, I don't really want to deal with anything right now, you know? Like, I wasn't super jazzed to deal with whatever might come up, whatever it was. And so that was my fear. I was like, oh gosh, what if something comes up? You know, it's energy to deal with these things. I knew that I could. It was just like, I didn't really want to. And Clarita says this in her podcast episode where she shares her experience, but like nothing happened. The thing that was actually scary was her thinking about the fear. And same thing for me. The thing that was actually scary was like this idea of whatever it was that might have come up, but actually nothing came up. And we'll talk more about this, but I had one of the best trips of my life. I had one of the best freaking trips of my life. It was so pleasant. There was only one unpleasant thought, which, you know, I'll just say it now, and it happened on both of my trips. It was that everything I feel is that it's going on right now in popular culture, right? Or even like, as I record this, last week is when Trump signed into, you know, all these, it was an executive order, I believe, about like psychedelic research, right? And people are sending me this like, oh my God, this is so great. This is so great. And I'm like, I really hope that this helps people, particularly veterans, you know? And all of this to me is a distraction from the Epstein files. Like, what the hell are we doing? I don't care, left, right, or center. Like, there needs to be an investigation. People need to be held to account. And I just kept having that thought of like, everything is a distraction from the Epstein files. So that was the only little like turn I took down another road. But I quickly like brought myself back, because at the end of the day, like, that's not my thing to process. Like, I'm not in the Epstein files. I have never done anything to children, right? Like, that's not something I can solve, and I certainly wasn't going to solve it in the middle of my trip, and I knew that. So I was able to be like, Julie, let's think about like, what can we actually do right now, right here? Like, what are the things that like are actually mine, right? The Epstein files are not mine. So I was able to let that go. But everything else, it was just one of the most pleasant, beautiful trips in my life. And so the formula that I was testing was, you know, if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that like, this is not my first rodeo in attempting to do this. Because I've set aside other weekends and other times where at first I was just going to do, in my mind, when I first started planning international retreat, and the whole point of the international retreat was it's just going to be longer. So I want to, like, there's more opportunity for more ceremonies, because if someone's traveling internationally, like I want them to feel like they have more time. I don't want it to just be a 4-day experience. So, I opened it up to 6 days. Like I can add other ceremonies. So originally it was just going to be mushrooms, LSD, other stuff, like meaning like fun activities, integration, shalala, enjoying the environment. But then when I tried to do that, I just could not get to the LSD on the second day. And I tried a few times. It was like, okay, so like clearly something has to give. So let's do mushrooms, break, full day break, LSD. Tried that, couldn't quite get there. But I'm so happy I got there this time. And the reason for that formula, the reason the mushrooms go first is because mushrooms are medicine for the heart and LSD is like medicine for the brain. And so what I mean when I say that is mushrooms are plant medicine that you do for the deeper healing, right? Whether that's looking at childhood trauma or things you've experienced as an adult or, grief, loss. It's that deeper emotional processing. I'm going to take a nice big sip of my Zevia here. It's that deeper emotional processing. Whereas LSD, you don't have that. Mushrooms are also very mushy. They're more introspective. Like even physically, you're kind of like curled up within yourself, you're laying down. LSD is more energetic, it's more cerebral, it's medicine for the brain. So when we look at people, like whether it be Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, which undoubtedly brilliant minds, but also, and I'll just speak for myself and kind of like what I have observed about them and, read, assholes, right? Not very nice people, megalomaniac type vibes. Not gonna armchair diagnose anyone, but that's like the vibe that I get from them, right? It's because they've done all these psychedelics that are really consciousness expanding without first working on their emotional body. And everyone has shit, right? I don't care if you think you had like a perfect child. Everyone has stuff. That's just the nature of the human experience. And so until you do that more like, oneness, oneness, healing, forgiveness work, it's not appropriate to move into LSD. So mushrooms first and then LSD. So I was obviously a little bit more nervous for the mushrooms because it just is more emotional. But I'm so happy that I win for it because, again, like the scariest part was what I thought might happen versus what actually happened, which was absolutely freaking amazing. I was just so happy, and this is reflected in Clarita's story as well. And just such a good lesson. Like, let's always pull this through because to me, psychedelics are the most potent mirrored, like directly for life lessons of like this is being shown to you in a psychedelic setting. For instance, the only way out is through. I always tell people if you're coming up against a hard moment in the trip, like you have to meet it and like face it head on and run toward it. And how it's true for life as well, right? The things that we avoid, they only grow. The only way we can kind of like let something go is to fully meet ourselves in the emotional experience of it. And so this fear of like what might happen versus actually doing, how often do we let that stop ourselves from, maybe going all in on our business or giving a relationship a chance or sending the email even, right? So the idea of the trip being scary was so much scarier than the trip itself. And this was also, again, shown up for Clarita. I feel like everyone who's scared really needs to hear it. I guarantee you your fear of whatever's going to come up in the trip is 1,000 times more intense than whatever happens in the trip itself, especially if you can really listen to that instruction and meet things instead of running away from them, because that really is the secret sauce to having a good trip. So the mushroom trip, the first day was like one of the happiest trips I've ever had. I had this very like intense power of deep visualization of putting myself in the experience of everything that I'm creating in my life. I felt so much love for so many different people. I even like I took my dog for a walk. And I also say I have a different relationship I feel with psychedelics at this point because there probably is a mushroom in me at this point. So we're growing. But when I say that, what I'm saying is that instead of feeling really taken away by the experience or like overcome by it, I am in much more of a dialogue with it. So I totally feel, I would never drive, right? That's so dangerous. I would never drive. I would never operate heavy machinery. But going for a walk or something, yes, I'm totally capable. You can see sight looks a little bit different, but it's not dangerous. I wouldn't not see a car or whatever. It's interesting. I was playing around. I was thinking, like, what amount do I want to take? And I decided to, like, look at Brian Johnson's recent psilocybin experiment. You know, I'm going to let Brian Johnson do his Brian Johnson things. I really feel like that's his zone of excellence. But I was just interested in it. I'm like, I have my Whoop tracker, you know, and he obviously looks at a lot of different measurements. He's hooked up to machines and taking readings of things, right? But I looked at his, he did like this 3-week break experiment, you know, psilocybin journey, 3 weeks, other one, and he shared his precise dosages, and I was like, you know what, let's just do this. It was a lot more than I would normally do. Another thing that came up on the podcast with Clarita, again, really think you should go listen to the episode, was this overall idea for her and for the other women on the journey that more is not more better, and how that shows up in your real life. So a quick recap, one of the women wanted to re-up at an hour, which is an option. I never personally do it. Whatever I start with is whatever I end with. I'm not re-upping anything. I just don't want to. I don't like it. Not my personal preference. And she wanted more, and she was having a really, really pleasant trip. She's like, yes, more. And then her trip started to get more difficult, and this issue came up that had been like a long-standing conflict with a friend, etc. And it took a turn for her, right? It became a difficult experience. And, you know, she shared that as like part of the integration circle. And it's interesting. More is not more better. Because we always think like, I want more. I want more money. I want more followers. I want more prestige and acclaim and love. And I mean, can you ever have too much love? But, you know, more is not more better. I just come off that land for a second. It's really not. And so she had this idea that if I took more mushrooms, it would be even more magical. And then it wasn't, right? So I'm a big lover of 3 grams. I know everyone also, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people want to get to this 5 grams. I want to have a hero's dose. I mean, okay, if you want to get there, I'm happy to help you. You know, but like, and I've taken more than, I took 4.7. I've taken more than that. But I thought, why not? Why not experiment with Brian Johnson's and see what his is all about? So I did, and it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. I had so much love, and even though it was more than I usually take, because normally I would take 3, which is, you know, when it's only, you know, 4.7 versus 3, that 1.7 is a pretty big difference, right? It's over 50% more of what I usually take. But I did it, and I had such a beautiful power of visualization and really being in the experience of all that I'm creating, like living in the end game. I took my dog for a walk, and then I recorded myself on mushrooms. My coach has been telling me to do this for forever. So I just set up my tripod, I set up my camera, and I just yapped. And my whole point of yapping, and the series is going to, actually, as you're listening to this, the series has already started dropping. I don't know if all the episodes are out yet, but it's a 6-part series of me on mushrooms, recording myself. And I just, like, I yapped for like 10 minutes. I sent the video to my EA, and I was like, cut this up for me. But the whole point was to show you, like, that I'm so, like, cogent. Is that the word I want? I think so. I'm not howling at the moon. I'm not rolling around on the ground. Like, again, I wouldn't drive. But I'm fine. Like, it's not this, like, losing yourself or, like, entering a state of psychosis. And that was my whole intention to show you. Like, this is what it's actually like. So I'm excited to share that soon. That'll be really... it'll be really... I say it in the video, but I feel like the most exposed I've ever felt. And, like, obviously, like... I've been in my swimsuit on the internet, you know, I've done all these things, I've shared other parts of my life, but that felt really scary. So vulnerable, but good and important to share. But then, oh my gosh, it was so funny. You know, I do a lot of research. I really like the research. And, you know, so many people, me, other retreat participants, sometimes experience this headache. And so I've learned, like, I've looked at it, and yeah, a headache after a journey is a fairly common side effect in the research, and like magnesium could help that. And so I told myself to take magnesium before I went to bed, and I didn't listen to myself. And then the next morning I literally got sick. Like, I had such a bad headache. I was so intense that I got sick, but thankfully I hadn't eaten anything. So, you know, it was all well that ends well. But it was very, very painful. So take magnesium if you're going to go on a journey with mushrooms in particular. Or man, will you pay for the next day? So I had that like rest day to kind of just like calibrate. And then I went the next day and did a trip with LSD. And LSD is really my favorite psychedelic. I love it so much. It's like such high energy. It's so fun. But you know, the thing about LSD is it's a longer trip overall. It also has a longer onset, whereas like the mushrooms I felt within the first 20 minutes after taking them. LSD I didn't really feel until an hour, and then you don't really peak until 2. And what I will say is like my normal dose for LSD, which is fine on its own, definitely like was something. I wouldn't have driven on it, and I didn't, but it wasn't quite what I consider a full LSD journey. So I'm just gonna start everyone off with like a higher dose, because tolerance builds so fastly in psychedelics, you know, like it's scientifically proven, it's anecdotally shown via my experience. So everyone will be starting at a higher dosage. And I love, like, what I really got out of that journey was like the power of presence and the beauty of just being. Like, how often do we just allow ourselves to be? We're so used to like picking up our phone or doing something or being stimulated in some way, and I was just being. I was being outside with my dog. I was laying out. I was being in the sun. We went for another walk, and it was just like, also a really good lesson, you know, that's shown to you in psychedelics that is hardcore mirrored in your real life, that Clarita and I broke down as well, of like the power of being bored. Allow yourself to be bored. Oh my gosh, people don't let themselves be bored. People want the constant stimulation, and it's like, no, babe. The magic is in just letting your brain kind of power down, because you know, we live in it's such an interesting time where we have more dopamine stimulation than ever before, and I just really wonder, like, what's this doing to our brain long term? I think stillness is very important, and so that was a beautiful lesson I got out of that. Something really cool where, again, I'm gonna let Brian Johnson live in his zone of excellence with all the data. Like, I like the science, but the data and like all that longevity, like that's definitely more his thing. My thing is more about like how good can life get right through, and the mechanism of life getting really good is being able to process, I believe, our emotions as they arise in the moment, and to not like carry them so much over time. But I did notice that my HRV, my heart rate variability, was over 100, and it hadn't been over 100 all year after my journey. And then one other night it was over 88. Actually, I can tell you all my HRVs. They've been crazy this week. They've been so much higher than usual. So last night my HRV was 78. I had another 100. Oh yeah, on Friday my HRV was 102, an 88, a 107. Like, highest, I had 2 days over 100 in this week, and I haven't had a 100 in like since this year, but like probably closer to 9 months. That's crazy. So when we look at HRV and we hear so much about nervous system regulation, it's kind of like, how do you really measure that? It seems like a very wishy-washy, amorphous BuzzFeed term, but HRV is one of the best ways to actually measure your nervous system's rest or digestness, right? So when your heart rate variability is really high, that means your body is truly in rest and digest, which means your nervous system is really strong. And so like, this isn't woo, this is really measurable. And to see that was so crazy. I was pumped. I was very, very excited for that. That was a huge win for me. And, you know, I'll also say, like, not a lot didn't really come up for me in the mushroom journey. Like, I didn't have this thing that I was working through. And I also want to say, like, I have before, right? Like, I have had those journeys that have been really, really emotional and hard, and I've worked through grief and loss and heartbreak and fear, so much fear. So I'm not saying I've never had those journeys, and I'm also not saying I'll never have them again, right? Like, people I love will die. I might get my heart broken again. Maybe, you know, not romantically, but maybe like in another way. You know, things can and will happen, because that's life. So I'm not saying I'll never have a difficult journey again, but what I noticed about this journey and how pleasant it was is like, that really to me speaks to my ability to tend to my inner garden moment to moment. And I didn't have some big monster come up in the trip, because whatever monsters come up for me, I deal with them in the moment. Like, every day I look at the monster, I face the monster, I feel my fear, I rewrite those stories. And so the work between the journeys really is the work, and the fact that my journeys were so pleasant signaled to me that, like, I've been doing it. And that's just, to me, it shows me that I like walk the walk that I talk about. And it's really important to me, kind of tying the thread all the way back to the beginning from an integrity POV. Integrity is really important to me. I always want to feel like I'm living in integrity. I feel like it's just a deeper sense of alignment and cohesiveness and peace. When you're in integrity, I feel like you have a deep sense of peace. So it is a very big core value for me. And that was just a really beautiful sign. And, you know, I'll also say, like, it's been really easy for me lately, specifically after the journey, to like edit my own thoughts. So I know so many people feel like their thoughts are kind of happening to them, or they're at the mercy of their thoughts, or they have no control over them, but that's not true. You can select your thoughts, and whenever you participate with a thought and you give it, you know, volume and credence, and you think these worst case scenario thoughts, you are feeding them. So for every moment that you spend thinking about bad things happening, I challenge you, I invite you, my integration for you this week is to take a pause and to think about what would the best case scenario thought be. And maybe you don't fully believe it, right? Maybe it's not fully like a yes for you, it doesn't feel true, but just like allow yourself the time and space to think it. Like, what would the best case scenario thought be? Instead of like, you know, my car's going to break down and it's going to cost me thousands of dollars, thinking about this car is going to run perfectly for 100,000 more miles. And in fact, you know, I am going to get an even better car, and I'm going to have like all these blessings financially and whatever else it is. So it's not to say like, you don't have to feel like, oh, well, if I don't believe it 100%, this isn't working. It's just simply giving the energy to it, right? You're giving so much energy to the worst case scenarios. So edit your thoughts and give some time to the best case scenarios. You are not at the mercy of your mind. Your mind is actually at the mercy of you, but you don't realize you have that power, and you give it away to just like the initial impulse. So take back the power. Take back the power. That really is my integration for you this week. And, you know, the whole premise of this podcast is how good can it get, right? I tested this formula. I feel freaking amazing. This is how good life can get. I also want to say it's not just like my psychedelic use. It's everything that I do in between, right? It's everything that I do in between. And psychedelics are a beautiful springboard, and they can help with so much with the processing piece, but you also have to be willing to do the work, but it can get really fucking good. And I want you to know that. And I feel so just alive and excited about my choice for the formula and to do this experiment, to even have this podcast with you. And it's like, don't miss out on this, right? Come stand in the sunshine with me. And you know, this episode drops with 5 days left to sign up for my VIP retreat waitlist. This is where you get VIP exclusive pricing. And if you've been thinking about experiencing this work in person with me, this is your experience. This is your window, because the waitlist members get an exclusive price that I'm not going to be offering publicly, like on Instagram. I'll only be offering it to those people on the waitlist. And, you know, once it's May 11th through the 15th. So if you want to get in, that is your final window to do so. In the show notes, there is the link to sign up for the VIP waitlist. So you can go ahead and do it down there, or you can DM me waitlist on Instagram, which is also linked up for me in the show notes, to get on the list before this window and this offer goes away. Because I only have three more retreats for the rest of the year. Tahoe at the end of July, I have Vermont at the end of September, and San Diego at the beginning of November. So go ahead, hop down there, hop on the wait list. I'll send you all the info to apply and the exclusive offer for pricing. And yeah, my integration for you, once again, is to really start giving some time to the thoughts of best case scenario. Even if you don't believe them, when you catch yourself thinking about these worst case scenarios, pause and give some energy to what it could look like the best case scenario. Okay? I love you so much. I'll catch you on the next episode. That's the end of today's trip. But remember, the real magic has always been inside of you. If this episode landed, send it to a friend who's ready to step into their next level. And make sure you're following the show so you never miss a dose. I'll be back again soon with another day on the path to your most limitless life. And until then, trust yourself, follow your intuition, and keep asking, how good can it get?